All right, welcome to the Sharp Minds Show, episode 82. I'm Nate, the Fit Future MD, your host. Be sure to shop at instracell.com and pick up your cool inspirational t-shirt today. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start off with a controversial topic, and the controversial topic is climate change, right? And so you basically have two sides to this issue. You have, or multiple sides to the issue. You have people that say that climate change is a complete hoax just to keep scientists in business. And then you have people that say the world's going to end in the next 5 years because of climate change. Two opposite extremes, right? So, first, we want to realize or determine for ourselves. I say this is the Sharp Mind podcast. So, we use logic, we use evidence, we figure out is something real or is it not real, right? So, climate change in general, is it real? Right. And so the answer, in my opinion, based on what I've read and what I've seen, is that climate change is absolutely 100% real. Now, the evidence I have for this, right? So if you go into an area around a river, right, and you remove all the trees from the river, right, what happens to the river? Right. So the river itself is going to all of a sudden see more sunlight, right? Because the trees were blocking the sunlight and keeping the temperature of the water cooler, right? And so every year, um, you have species of fish that come up the river and spawn in those rivers, right, from the ocean, into the river, spawn, and then go back out to the ocean, right? Now these fish are vital to the ecosystems, not only of the rivers, but of the ocean and on down the line, right? So, it's funny how nature is like that, right? But if you heat up the water where these fish used to breed, the fish can no longer breed in those areas. The eggs don't hatch, the fish won't breed in those areas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So this is an example of what uh, climate change is to me, right? So humans go into an area and they disrupt the ecosystem of the area, right? And so that can have downstream impacts all over the planet, right? Um, so, um, but so that's one example, right? Um, so then all of a sudden, the salmon population is decreased, the prices of salmon are going up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, um, so red drum also do this in the creek that we discharge in, right? They come into the creek and they discharge. But if you went in there and, put houses all along the creek and destroy all the trees, the fish are not going to be able to do that, right? So because of the heat of the water. So basically, and then here's another example. So North Carolina in particular has really grown in the last 5 years, right? I would say if it hadn't doubled its population in the last 5 years, then it would be really close to doubling the population in the last 5 years. But so that basically means that more housing and more apartments and that kind of thing have to be developed. So North Carolina was a place where 70% of the state was forest, right? And now we're all, a little bit above 50-50, right? So 50% of the state is now forest. But that means that, you know, you've lost 10% of the forest that animals used to be in, right? So that is a big impact and will impact the system, right? The ecosystem. So we have a road here in Morehead City called Galantis, and it used to dead end at a forest, right? And so the developers came in and extended the road all the way to Friendly Road, and then made apartments on both apartments and an old a nursing home on that road, right? Well, that forest uh, used to hold, house um, caterpillars, right? So you would go down this extended road and you'd see the caterpillars hatch and then go across the road, make their cocoon and become butterflies, right? Which obviously some animal eats or whatever, right? Ecosystem. But now that the forest is gone, the amount of caterpillars that are continued, they're still there. And maybe that type of caterpillar is not extinct in the world or whatever, but you have made a climate impact, ecological impact, right? So then the question becomes, if you're doing this all over the world, what is the big picture? What is the macro picture here, right? So um, if this river is warmer, these fish don't hatch. What happens to the rest of the world, right? And so, is it a big enough impact to cause climate change, right? Where you actually are destroying the entire planet, you know, based on these little changes, because you can see clearly that a human population comes into an area and changes the area, good or bad. You can see that the climate there actually changes, the ecosystem actually changes. And so, is that big enough to actually cause real change in the world? Well, scientists right now say yes, right? It does. It is enough to cause real change throughout the entire planet, right? And they're specifically talking about things that we can't see, right? So I can clearly see that these butterflies are having a problem. I can clearly see that the fish population is going down because they're cutting down trees, right? I can clearly see that. You may not be able to clearly see that um, that your oxygen levels are having problems because you're cutting down trees or stuff like that, right? Most of the tree issue has been fixed by replanting trees, right? But the problem is the ecosystem of trees is many different types of trees. And one thing that I personally don't like when they cut down a forest is that they put the same pine tree, they basically selectively take just pine trees and plant them back, right? But that does solve the oxygen problem, right? You're losing oxygen on the planet, right? Because trees take CO2 and make it into oxygen. But that's the big question: is there really a big impact? And the impact is that we personally can't see that impact, right? We don't see the glaciers melting and all that kind of stuff. Like they say, they show you a video of a piece of ice falling off, but is it the same, as it is every year? Where are we at? We don't even know because we didn't take measurements. We can make an educated guess on what things were like a million years ago versus, whatever, and is it at all uh, inefficient compared to where the planet is compared to the sun, you know? So, how I feel, I guess, about this, is that you have to do your best to protect the planet the best that you can, right? So, and you do that by decreasing your footprint, right? So, whatever that means to you, okay? Now, does that mean so on the planet we deem that humans are the most important species, right? So we're not going to hurt the human species for a different species, right, on the planet. And so that means you need to have regulation that doesn't hurt the human species, right? So basically, if so say the human species doesn't have enough water in an area and you're all going to thirst to death, you're not going to say, okay, we're not going to drill here for water, to make a well because we're trying to save this other species or whatever, right? So that's just I call it common sense regulation, not ridiculous regulation, right? So the key is to not be on either extreme, right? So let me know what you guys think about climate change, right? So climate change is a controversial issue. Obviously, we want to do the best that we can, but we also don't want to hurt each other by being so regulated that we can't do anything, right? So keep that in mind. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. All right. This episode is brought to you by Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, which is my wife's children's book. Be sure to check out Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins on Amazon by best-selling Amazon author Meredith Dillon Johnson. All right. So we're going to hit you secondly with a second banger today, and that's growing economic uncertainty. Should you be worried about growing economic uncertainty and what to do about it? All right, so when you grow up poor, you don't even know that you're poor, right? You don't even know what things are like when you don't have something, right? You never drove a BMW, you don't know that a BMW drives better than your Ford Taurus, right? Like you just don't know. And sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? So but the issue arises when you rise yourself up a level and then all of a sudden you realize you have something to lose, right? So should you be worried about losing from here back down to here? Absolutely. And so what do you do about it? Well, number one, you have to realize that investing is the only way to go from here to here, right? And so basically that's what people have figured out since the 90s is that if you don't invest, if you're in a capitalist society and you're not the one investing, then you are the one that is going to go from here to here, right? And so NAFTA basically took away all our manufacturing jobs, which kept people here and kept people happy, right? So all those manufacturing jobs went away, and then people were like pushed to college, and those the college is basically training you for the mid-level job at these factories, at these manufacturing places. And guess what? Or corporate America, whatever. And guess what? If those go somewhere else, then so do those jobs, right? And so you have more people graduating from college than there are jobs to be filled, right? And so that is a change currently. But the things are shifting. Everything's shifting to AI. Everything's shifting to robotics, and but engineers are being laid off right now, right? So that's what's growing economic uncertainty is in the middle, right? The rich are going to continue to get rich because they have money to invest. So they're just going to invest, and their money's going to make money. Even if robots are doing the work, their money's going to make money. The middle class, the class that really has and the bottom's already taken care of by Medicare, Medicaid, housing subsidies, food stamps or SNAP benefits, that kind of thing. So the bottom of the bottom's already taken care of. It's the middle that's where you have uncertainty, right? And so what do you do about it? You invest, right? So the standard is 15% a year. If you're really worried about economic uncertainty, you're going to be investing at least 20%. And you're going to take 5% of that 20%, and you're going to try to find the next Tesla, the next Netflix, the next Palantir, right? Things that go from it's worth $1 billion to it's worth $100 billion, 100x, right? So if you put $1,000 into something, you end up with $100,000, right? Um, let's say in Tesla's the 2000X example, NVIDIA is like a 10,000X example, right? It was like $10 and now it's sitting in almost $200, right? So you keep that in mind. That's what you're looking for. And so you're looking for one of those a year with 5% of whatever you make, right? And hopefully in 5 years or 10 years, one of them hits, right? And so you make your entire lifetime's worth of salary off of one thing, one stock, right? And so that's what I would do. Obviously, it's not financial advice and it's not individual financial advice. If you're looking to help yourself economically, be sure to check me out for life coaching, and I can set you up and make sure that you find this and teach you how to find things like that, right, and be more successful. But let me know what you would do if you are worried about the growing economic uncertainty. What would you do about it, right? All right. So moving on to life coaching today. This man writes, I'm lonely even though I'm around people, right? So they're basically saying that there's a loneliness epidemic, right? And it's basically this is what I really call it. I'd call it people that are intellectual versus people that are not, right? And I'll be honest, it is very difficult sometimes to connect with people that aren't intellectual, but you have to find the easiest way to not be lonely is to find common ground with people, right? And so you just ask them what they like. Okay, you like this video game. Okay, you like watching video games or people play video games. Okay, well, I used to play Madden. That's great. That kind of thing. Some people, Stranger Things just came back out, right? So you have a commonality with Stranger Things. Oh, cool! I met the little kid when I was on a Comic Con cruise, back in 2016 when he was still a kid. Now look at him; he's all grown up, right? So keep that in mind. That's basically how you're going to find new people, right? You have to, when you get around somebody, you figure out what they like, what they enjoy, and find that common ground with them. And then if you find that common ground, hopefully you go from shallow to deep, meaningful conversations and stuff like that. So that's what I do. I find out what people are interested in, and then I try to relate to them the best that I can. Obviously, me being a high IQ individual, that is something I've had to work on my entire life, right? So people that aren't used to having to work on it may have to spend a little bit more time on that. Let me know what you guys would do. If you're feeling lonely, what would you do? How do you find meaningful relationship and reconnect with people in society, right? All right. The last thing is the quote of the day. It's basically, what do I want to be when I show up to the world today, right? Not the goals, not the schedule, just your identity, right? Patient or rust, confident or doubtful, present or distracted, right? So, and basically, we put this into our affirmations, right, and change our mindset, right? So, what do I want to be when I show up to the world? I want to be confident, right? Everything I say, I want to be confident in. So, if I'm talking about something, this means I've researched it and I know what I'm talking about, or I've seen it and it's on a legitimate source and I know what I'm talking about, right? I want to be present. I don't want to be thinking about other things, right? So if someone's talking to me, I don't want to be thinking about my fantasy team later, right? And then obviously something that's very difficult with people is being patient. When people are talking about things you really don't care about, it's very difficult to be patient sometimes. But that's the way it is. And so let me know what you guys would want to show up to the world today. What's your identity when you show up to the world? I'm Nate, and I'm a life coach. That's my identity. I help people set up their lives so that they can be successful. If you're interested in something like that, hit me up for life coaching. It's one fee for the entire year. And if I don't improve your life, 100% money back guarantee after that year if I don't improve your life, right? So hit me up in the DMs, sign up for life coaching today. Check out InstaCell.com, pick up a cool inspirational t-shirt. Buy my wife's book, Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with somebody that needs it. And we'll see you later. Peace.